Hi everyone, thanks for visiting my channel. I hope you all are doing well. If you are new here, thanks for stopping by. I hope you will consider subscribing and don't forget to hit the like button. Subscribing and liking the video helps my channel. So the star of today's video is going to be Sam, our sourdough starter. Now, if you don't have a sourdough starter, I have a video on how to get going with a sourdough starter and how to maintain it. So I will link that for you in the description box below and also with an iCard here in the corner. Many of you have asked me for recipes using sourdough discard, and that's exactly what we're going to do today. We're going to be making blueberry sourdough muffins. Don't those look delicious? This recipe comes from King Arthur Baking. Surprise, surprise. If you've been around my channel very much, you know that I enjoy King Arthur Baking's recipes and all of their products and everything that goes along with that. I get their monthly catalog, and in May's catalog it had this recipe, and it's a perfect way for using up sourdough discard. Now, in light of full disclosure, I have not tried this recipe yet. Like I said, this just came, and so it is a new recipe to me, so we're going to try it together. But it sounds really yummy, and for those of you who are enjoying your sourdough as much as I do, this was a great way to use up our discard. So we just need a handful of ingredients. We need regular flour, we need yellow cornmeal. They say preferably whole grain. And then we need some salt, some baking soda, some cinnamon. We need 1 cup of our starter. Now with your sourdough starter, you can either use ripe or fed starter, or you can use discard. We're gonna be using discard today, so it's appropriate for either one. We're going to be using some milk, a large egg, vegetable oil, or you can use butter. I'm going to be using vegetable oil. I like them both in baking. Butter tends to add a little more flavor. Vegetable oil adds more hydration. I think it makes especially muffins and breads more moist. So I'm going to use the oil to add some extra moisture to my muffins. We're going to be using maple syrup. Maple syrup is the only sweetener used in this, so there's no refined sugar. With the exception of, they do suggest that you use a little bit of sparkling sugar to sprinkle the top of them. Totally optional. I'm going to do that, but if you do not groove on refined sugar, you can totally leave that out. And then we need 2 cups of blueberries, fresh or frozen. I had lots of frozen wild blueberries in my freezer, so I'm going to be using wild blueberries. I'm using a little more than 2 cups, but I rinsed my blueberries with cold water to defrost them, and then I tossed them with a little bit of flour to absorb some of the extra moisture. I did let them drain for quite a while, but they were still pretty moist, so I did sprinkle about a tablespoon or 2 of flour on them to try to help absorb some of that moisture. Also, if you sprinkle your blueberries with flour before putting them in a batter, it helps to keep them from sinking to the bottom. So that is where we are. I have my oven preheated on 425. So I'm going to bring you in close and we're going to get started. Okay, so we are going to start by whisking together our dry ingredients. I have 1 cup of all-purpose flour and I have 1 cup of cornmeal. To that, we are going to add our seasonings and our leavening. I have 1.5 teaspoons of cinnamon, 3/4 teaspoon of salt, and 1 teaspoon of baking soda. And we're just going to whisk all that together in a large bowl. Now for our dry ingredients. This is Sam, my sourdough starter. All I did was take him, I have not fed him. I just took him out of the refrigerator and let him sit on my counter for 3 to 4 hours just to get nice and bubbly. And you can tell he is very happy, really bubbly, and he is ready for me to do something with him. So I'm going to stir it down. And we need 1 cup. Now I know from having kept my starter that I have about 1.5 cups of starter in here, and I'm going to need 1/2 cup to feed it to keep him going. So I'm going to remove everything from my jar except for the 1/2 cup, and that will be the 1 cup that I need for this recipe. If you have more sourdough starter than that on hand, you'll want to measure it in a measuring cup. But I'm familiar with my starter, and I know that if I leave 1/2 cup in there, it will be the perfect amount. So I'm going to put 1 cup of my unfed starter, my discard. And I'm gonna set Sam aside and I'm gonna feed him, just as an FYI, I'm gonna feed him with a half a cup of water and a scant 1 cup of flour. Stir it together, let him sit on the counter and get nice and bubbly, and then I can pop him back in the fridge till I'm ready to use him again. But we've got our 1 cup of starter in here, and we're going to add our wet ingredients. We need 1/4 cup of milk. I'm using 2% because that's what I had on hand. We also need 1/4 cup of vegetable oil. You could also use melted butter. We need 1 egg, 1 large egg. And then we need a half a cup of maple syrup. And we're just going to whisk that together. I'm gonna pop my yolk and whisk that together. It can take a little bit of coaxing to get all your wet ingredients incorporated with your starter, but just do the best you can with it. And then I'm going to use my Danish whisk, and I'm going to mix my wet ingredients into my dry ingredients. Danish whisk is wonderful for quick breads, muffins, pancakes, waffles, all that kind of thing. And we don't want to, you never want to over mix when you get to this point. We just want to get everything incorporated. So make sure there's nothing dry in the bottom of your bowl. Okay, now that I have my dry ingredients mixed into my wet ingredients, I'm going to go ahead and add my 2 cups of blueberries carefully. See, they're still kind of wet. I don't want all that juice in there, so. And I'm just going to gently fold them in. Okay, once you have folded in your blueberries into your batter, you're going to take your muffin pan. Their instructions are to line your pan and then spray them or grease them. So I'm just going to use a little bit of cooking spray to spray them. And then I am going to use a ice cream scoop to fill them 2/3 full. Okay, so once you get your muffin tin full, I will say the instructions do say to fill them 2/3 full. For me to use all the batter, it says it yields 12, but for me to use all the batter, I had to fill them fuller than that. They're at least 3/4, if not all the way full. So there's that. We'll see how it goes. Now we're going to pop them into a 425-degree preheated oven. I almost forgot the sparkling sugar. It is optional. I'm going to sprinkle half of mine with the sugar and leave the other half without to see which ones I like better. But don't forget to do that before you pop them in the oven. We're going to bake them for approximately 25 minutes. Okay guys, we're back. I baked my muffins for about 21 minutes. I know the recipe says 25. I would keep an eye on them starting at 20. When you insert a toothpick in the middle, it should come out clean. And mine were done by 21 minutes. So keep an eye on them. You certainly don't want them to dry out, especially because of the cornmeal that's in them. I think that they could easily become too dry. So keep a close eye on them. But they are so pretty and my kitchen smells amazing. Here's what they look like. And this one is one that has some sparkling sugar on it. It's so pretty. They're still warm from the oven. It's the best way to eat a muffin, right? Warm from the oven. Now, I will say that if you don't like the bleeding from the blueberries like this one, you can really see how it turned pretty blue. There was a lot of bleeding, even though I thoroughly drained my frozen blueberries and I added some flour to them. I think if you don't want that, if you're really into aesthetics, I would use fresh blueberries instead of frozen. That's just me, but that doesn't bother me. It's just for us and it's not a big deal to me. But if you're looking to make them really pretty, I would use fresh instead of the frozen blueberries because I'm not sure how else you could avoid that. Anyway, so I've got one cut here, put a little Amish butter on it. We'll give it a taste. You can see the texture on the inside. It still has a muffin texture. I know the cornmeal seems like a strange ingredient, but cornmeal goes really well with blueberries, which I'm suspecting that's one of the reasons why they used it. But it has really nice texture. And we'll see if we can taste any of the sourdough. They have a lot of great flavor. You definitely taste the cornmeal, so if you don't groove, it doesn't taste like cornbread, but you can definitely taste a little bit of the cornmeal. The texture, you can tell that the cornmeal is in there, although I would not say it is the same texture as cornbread. The sourdough starter, I think, helps with the texture, make it soft and fluffy on the inside. But they're really good. It has kind of a complex flavor. If you are a person who does not like anything like muffins that are really sweet, this is a fantastic recipe. They are not overly sweet at all. Even with the sparkling sugar, they're just lightly sweetened. So that's something else to consider. If you are a person who likes their muffins really sweet, this is probably not going to be a recipe that you enjoy, but I think that they are perfect. I would say they're probably on the healthier side for a muffin. But they're really good. I do enjoy the texture. It's nice and moist. It's not dry at all, even though you can detect the cornmeal in there. But it's really good, really different, and a great way to use your sourdough starter. So I highly encourage you to give them a try. Like I said, I think I would use fresh as opposed to frozen blueberries next time, just for aesthetic purposes, although I love wild blueberries, are one of my favorites. The other thing too is you're just going to have a little bit of patience when you are trying to incorporate your wet ingredients into your starter. That can take a little work to whisk all that together. The starter doesn't want to incorporate into your wet ingredients very well. It does take a little work to do that. So you just need a little bit of patience, and also stirring in your blueberries. If you're using the frozen ones, I think that is a little bit more difficult to do to keep it from bleeding. So just do it gently and be patient with getting it to incorporate in your batter. I think this is a fantastic recipe. It was fun to try something new. A great way to use your sourdough starter. A great way to enjoy delicious blueberries. Thanks for joining me today, guys. I hope you enjoyed coming along for the test. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Leave me a comment if you are a sourdough user. Leave me a comment. Let me know that you enjoy having these recipes, new ways to use up your starter, and I will include more recipes for you. So thanks for joining me. Have a great day, and I will see you next time.